Firstly, I want to look at this exterior scene, go through the render settings, especially the render elements, and then have a quick look at V-Ray scatter. So first of all, I've introduced some artificial lights inside the building, and then this overlit sky that's lighting it from behind the building, so you can't see the sun in this one. Makes the foreground very dark and then brings out the light through the windows, and also kind of shows off this lovely glass brick material really well. Are and you can add more here, but the basic ones that I um, always have in there are ambient occlusion, which basically is this, and just gives me, it might not show here now because it's just developing, but it gives me a, a sort of layer that in Photoshop I can use to increase the definition of these elements, and also to kind of add some dirt around the edges of objects. You have to be a little bit careful with not overdoing this, because it starts to look too artificial, and also you need to sort of take it off the glass, and it doesn't work so well with some materials, so don't overuse it either. The diffuse channel, mainly if you had textures that might not be visible enough, or you want to make a more graphic view with this, then you can use that one. Material random color is very important. This will add a material color to each material that you've selected, so that in Photoshop you can very easily uh, uh, pipette out all the, say, glass or all the concrete in a quick click. Geometry normals, you might find this useful if you're, again, for post-production, selecting certain things that face a certain way. Have we got, yeah. So if I found the ceiling too dark, I could select it. But again, I would be careful with making too many adjustments. If that ceiling's too dark, then add another light. Render ID, uh, I've put this in here just in case you wanted to pick out one thing, a geometry that stands out for you. You can use this layer to do that. And the other one is Z depth, and Z depth is a great way to, um, not so much in this image, but one that has more depth. You can really make use this to kind of screen and to make things that are further into the distance, to take basically the darkest kind of blacks out of them, and to give more depth to your image. And you basically use this map in reverse for your photoshopping. Good. I'll talk about how to use this in Photoshop. Now, the thing I wanted to quickly show is how to use V-Ray scatter. So generally, you have to be careful if you are importing a geometry that has lots of polygons. So if I go here, I'm sure there'll be lots of examples. And for instance, trees. Don't just import these and then make 50 copies, because it will, your memory, your file will crash for sure. And so only use these in instances if you're placing one particular tree somewhere. But if you are wanting to distribute these across the site, and I will do the same with grass now, so I've imported two grasses just from scatter, sorry, from V-Ray Cosmos. Then you need to use this program called, or this plugin called V-Ray Scatter. So if I click on this now, it will ask me to, maybe I will stop this for a second so it doesn't crash. Actually, let's unselect what I had. Let's start again. So if you wanted to distribute more than just one, if you wanted to distribute more than just one element, you need to use V-Ray scatter. And V-Ray scatter can be found up here, and select objects to be converted into scatter hosts. So your host is the surface or area that you want to use. So I press confirm, and I've now created the scatter, and it will be in here in the geometry rollout scatter. Oh no, I don't know which one it was. Let's say it was this one. Delete, that I created. Yeah. So he had asked me to add guests, and guests are my objects that I want to distribute. So here I have two plants. Well, you can't see them now, but you will in a moment. And I will add them to here. And now you can kind of see them here as boxes distributed around the side on this surface that I chose as my host. Now, I will turn this back on now so we can see what happens in the view. So there's not very many of these now, considering they're small grasses, so I will up this count limit, and I will put this up to somewhere around there. And I also need to see in a second what happens. Yeah. So I can see them distributed here. So whilst this is loading, what I want to do is only the area in between the slabs here is soil, and then this is concrete. So basically I don't want this grass to be on this concrete, and so I can exclude it from the scatter, and I can do this by adding an area modifier to it. So I've now increased here the amount of grass, and I will just restrict this to the bottom half so we can see. So we'll let this emerge whilst we're working. So I will now exclude it from there. So I will select this area and add it to here. And it will say that here it's an include, but I want it to be an exclude. So I add this. And now you can see that the grass really is only visible inside. The other thing I'd like to do is to only include it in this area here so that it doesn't show where I might have paths or I walk around the building and so on. So again, I will add this as an area here. Now this is by default added as an include, and so now my planting is restricted to just this area and the surface, so it won't be here. Now in 3D, this is what it looks like. Bit. So here we see it. Now they're all the same size, and I think by default here they have a random rotation set where they all rotate. The random scale at the moment is from 1 to 1, so they will all be the same scale. And if I untick this, I can also vary them according to their different sort of axes. So as they're grasses, I might stretch them towards the z-axis more than, say, in the y. So I'll just do this a little bit, and then I will have more of a variant here. There are other settings here, and depending on what you're scattering, you can play with these. And I think V-Ray 7, that will hopefully come out soon on V-Ray, on Rhino, will hopefully have more settings here. So you can scatter anything, just to make a copy. Take these off, and I'll just take these down. I have some rocks here, for instance. I can scatter just the same way, so I will add these like so. I've made these rock a new scatter. So I made this new scatter rock here. The only issue is that basically the surface that I chose here, and if I go into the properties, I have V-Ray properties here. It shows you here that the grass scatter is selected, and basically I can only have this host object hosting one type of scatter. You can add to grass. So I guess for the rock I could try and use perhaps this as my host. So if I rock for this one, we should now hopefully get both. There's lots of rock here, and let's delete this. Probably various things going on. One that it's too big, and then one that there are too many of them. By the way, if you don't have the live preview, I can already see in here that there's too many of them and that they're too large. So if I didn't want to go into changing the scale of the actual object, I could also just scale it down using this one. I might vary it a bit so we get different sizes, but now you can see that, that they've shrunk in size, and we can change the amount. Sorry, now here instances count. We can scale this down to say 200 rocks, and then we should have the odd rock in between the grasses. Again, if we didn't want collisions, I mean there aren't any, but if the rock shouldn't collide with the lights, we could add the lights into our area modifiers so that it doesn't that doesn't clash. But yeah, this is how you can use V-Ray scatter to create environments in V-Ray.